Poe Dameron Volume 4 Legend Found is the fourth and penultimate volume in the shitty Poe Dameron series and contains issues 20 to 25 as well as annual number 1, which is actually set before an issue in the previous volume, so I have no idea why it's in this one, but hey, the entire series is shit, so really, what difference does it make? After 3 really shitty volumes, I honestly had no hope at all for this volume, but somebody must have told Soul he's only got 2 left because he really seems to have pulled his socks up, halfway at least. It's far from perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than the previous 3 volumes, although any good is severely outweighed by, well, you'll see. At the beginning, we see someone sneaking into a safe storage place for valuables on Cato Nemoidia. It's like a big safe. And this person has tech that lets them walk through lasers, because who gives a fuck about canon anymore? He looks at something and gets caught by security, where it's revealed that after being teased in the first volume, 3 volumes later we finally get to see Lor-San Tekka. And after 3 shitty volumes, I think Soul introduced him in quite an impressive way, because it's right at the beginning of the book and it's a shock reveal. It was interesting because before he's caught, he's inspecting something that seems to be a holocron, although the word is never actually used. It's a repository of knowledge designed to only be unlocked by a lightsider and a darksider working together, similar to how Maul and Ezra had to work together in Rebels. I'm curious if it's the same one or if this will play into Rise of Skywalker, but I highly doubt it. I suspect this is just a bone thrown to fans because while this trade was released in May 2018, this issue is actually from October 2017, 2 months before The Last Jedi was released, and if anything should have teased towards that, not Rise of Skywalker, which probably hadn't even been written at that point. So my guess is that this dark side, light side thing is just going nowhere, which is a shame considering how much episodes 1 to 6 relied on balance being part of the story, and the fact that in one of the reference books there's that image that clearly shows the Ukto temple floor, claiming it to be the prime Jedi in a state of meditation and balance. As always, I'll leave a link in a pinned comment so you can see the image for yourselves. You may have to remind me to do that because I seem to forget every time I upload. But to me it looks like Ashla and Bogan in a yin-yang style to show balance between the dark and the light, and it looks a hell of a lot like Snoke. Could that possibly be what this holocron is leading up to? Not a chance. Ruin saw to that. Don't fool yourselves, kids. Disney has no long-term plans for Star Wars. They're the Tourette's section of the movie-making world. They just randomly say shit like table and it means nothing. Anyone who thinks it does is just kidding themselves. There's some clearly manufactured drama when whatever Snap Wexley's girlfriend is called breaks up with him because, and I quote, things are going too well between them. What kind of fucking bollocks is that? By the end of the book, they're back together and married. But I don't care because 1, it was clearly only included for the drama anyway, and it didn't feel natural, and 2, I still don't care about the girls. Like I said in the last volume, it's not that I'm sexist, I just don't care about characters that have had absolutely no personality in the entire series so far, and only existed to lift Poe up. If you think I'm exaggerating, somewhere in this volume they shout, "Thank the lights, Poe Dameron is here." Fuck me. One of the girls apparently has a running joke throughout the trade about all her astromechs dying, and this time it's a big deal because none of them want to work with her because they call her the Destroyer or something. I can't remember the name, I didn't care. And the only droid who will work with her is BB-8's friend, or girlfriend, or boyfriend, or no in Disney, non-binary friend. I can't remember what the droid was called, but I quite liked the design. We've seen droids with see-through domes before, but I quite liked that combined with the white and the brighter shade of green. Word gets back to the Resistance that Lor-San Tekka has been imprisoned, and remember how in the last volume Soul plagiarised Speed? Well, this time it's insert your own movie here. I'm going with Ocean's 11, but any kind of heist movie, complete with montage that cuts between the planning stage and the action stage, and there's a few panels where there's a close-up on Leia and she's holding her right hand up and she's saying, if you want them to look here, and then in the next panel she's got a left hand up going, you need them to look here. It's not Star Wars. I don't need Star Wars to be Ocean's 11 or Speed. You know, it's only a matter of time before we end up getting a Saw version of Star Wars, and it just won't work. They tried that with Red Harvest and Death Troopers, and it's just a bad idea. You lose the spirit of Star Wars. Star Wars is such a rich and creative tapestry that you shouldn't, if you are worth your weight in salt as a writer, you shouldn't need to try to import movies to make it good. They didn't do that with Knights of the Old Republic or the Old Republic or anything like that. They didn't do that with the New Republic or the New Jedi Order, Legacy of Force, Fate of the Jedi. You know, they didn't steal to create Star Wars stories, they created their own thing. Why they feel the need to do that with Star Wars is beyond me, and every time they do it, I care less and less. I want Star Wars to be Star Wars. It's that fucking simple. To be honest, I have no idea why Charles Soule keeps stealing plots from movies and putting them in these comics. Perhaps he's just a bad writer, or perhaps he's realised Poe Dameron, the character, has no apparent personality apart from cocky or merit to him in the movies, so he has nothing to work with. I don't care which one it is. Plagiarism is plagiarism, and Soule is guilty of it. The fact is, it's Star Wars, and I refuse to believe no stories can be written for it without stealing plots from other stories, Rian Johnson. Fortunately, it's just a few pages, but still, like I said, plagiarism is plagiarism, and it's unacceptable. So Leia's plan is to take her mother's clothes to Cato Nemoidia to be locked up in a vault for safety, and inside one of the containers will be Poe sneaking in because, as we all know, places designed to keep things safe theft are designed to be hard to get into, but nobody thinks about how easy they will be to get out of. It was nice to see that Leia knows a fair bit about Padme, although it's still not clear exactly how much, and we do see that one of the dresses is the dress Padme wore to the lake house in episode 2 for Anakin's "I hate sand" speech. And while I hate the amount of plagiarism occurring in Star Wars lately, I have to admit this scene was done pretty well overall. It had a good pace to it, but then again, how hard is it to get something right when you're literally stealing it from a well-liked movie? Part of the plan is that while Leia is being schmoozed by the Nemoidian who owns the vault, Black Squadron, minus Poe of course, attacks the palace, so hopefully nobody would notice Poe doing his thing inside, and this is the "if you don't want them to look here, make them look here" thing. Then Commander Malaris and Agent Terex pop up out of nowhere. I'm not sure why, I don't think that's ever explained. Disney Star Wars! I get that they heard that Lor San Tekka had been captured the same way Leia heard, and we know the First Order is looking for him too, but it was just those two that arrived. Then all they did was steal Poe's X-Wing and Leia's ship, and I have no idea why. There's no possible way they could have known what Leia's plan was, or how far into it the team had gotten, so them stealing the ships just seemed totally pointless. If they heard Lor San Tekka was there, they should have landed and tried to buy his release, or landed and tried to get him out. But they didn't, they just stole Leia's ship as if they knew what Leia's plan was. It makes no sense. It's a plot hole I'd put right up there with Poe fighting the First Order at the beginning of The Last Jedi. It literally makes no sense, except for one thing. It was designed to set up another moment later on, a moment where Poe flips his ship so his canopy is right above Malaris's, and when they each look up, they're face to face. BB-8 ejects from Poe's X-Wing, commanded by Malaris, and he uses his extension cord thing to hook onto the ship Poe's flying. It's set up for a gotcha moment, and that's it. Because who needs plot? We don't need plot anymore, all we need is gotcha moments. And that's it. Malaris crashes, screaming something about how she's the perfect being because she's still injecting that stuff in her eye like she was in the last volume, and we still have no idea what's wrong with it or what that stuff is, making it entirely pointless, making this entire book, rather than being filled with plot holes, it's the Grand Canyon. Once Malaris is arrested by the Nemoidians, we don't hear from her again for the rest of the volume. So you see, Poe and Leia's ship being hijacked were designed purely to set this battle up, with no actual reason for Malorus and Terex to do it, so it's completely worthless. It's a paper-thin plot, and it's so sad to know that even when Soul is stealing stories, he still can't do a good job. Like I said in my review of Dr. Aphra, it's time for some fresh blood in Star Wars, and Soul needs to go. While that had been happening, Agent Terex was still in control of Leia's ship, which fortunately had been reloaded with Leia's clothes, and inside one of the containers was Lor San Tekka, and Terex releases him because apparently he knew he was there, although it's never explained how. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to laugh at all the plot holes, but it's just so difficult. Terex is still struggling with his slave implants from the First Order, so his plan is to trade Lor San Tekka in exchange for having the implants removed. He spaces Padme's clothes under the assumption that there's a tracker in one of them, and I'm curious because he said he did it in hyperspace because nobody will ever see them again. So does that mean they were destroyed, or just that it's highly unlikely that someone will come across them given the size of space? Who knows? Terex made a deal with Phasma where he outsmarts her and they remove his implants. He leaves before giving them the location of Tekka, who is actually just floating around in space somewhere, but it's odd because one of the things Terex demanded as part of the deal was a set of the First Order Stormtrooper armour, and a few pages later we see him modifying it just like he did in Volume 2, and it looks just as ridiculous as it did then, and there's still no actual reason given for why he's doing it, even after he's attained his freedom from both the slave implant and the First Order. They're just doing it because, hey, that's what he does. He did it in Volume 2, he's got no actual character, so let's make him like a samurai stormtrooper. It's just a fucking joke. Just like in the previous 3 volumes of Poe, nothing about the characters add up at all. There's no actual motivation for the things they do, particularly Terex and Malorus. And it's just boring to read comics based on characters that don't do anything except set up aha moments later on. Fucked off at the First Order, Terex decides to tell Poe where he's hidden Lor San Tekka, and this leads to a space fight between the Resistance and the First Order, with each trying to claim Tekka first. The Resistance wins. He goes back to Dakar with them, and get this, he tells Leia he doesn't know where Luke is. He has his suspicions, but he's going to fuck off now to go and look for him instead of telling her what he knows. Fuck me, it's like Soul didn't have a fucking clue what he was doing when he wrote this. I would say hopefully this will be explained in the next volume, but I seriously doubt it. In 4 volumes, absolutely nothing has been explained. I would be a fool to expect an explanation in the final volume. During the battle, BB-8's boyfriend, girlfriend, non-binary friend, droid dies when it throws... Oh my god, it's a droid. Technically it is non-binary. Oh shit. Wow, I was being sarcastic. I didn't actually realise I was right. Although, it's a computer, so technically it's binary. It's a binary, non-binary friend. Anyway, I'm going to call it her. She throws herself out of its socket to intercept a missile, saving the life of whatever her fucking name is, the girl who destroys the droids all the time. And back on the base, BB-8 puts her CPU memory chip thing in Poe's X-Wing so they can always fly together, just like that droid in Solo, because, you know, Soul is no longer happy plagiarising one movie portrayed, now he wants to plagiarise 2 in every one. By the way, in Solo, when the droid is put into the Millennium Falcon's computer after she dies, I actually didn't mind that. A lot of people had an issue with it. They said, well, why haven't we heard about it before? And I would say we have, because in Empire Strikes Back, we hear Han say, shut everything down, and C-3PO says, I'm almost afraid to ask, sir, but does that include shutting me down too? And Han says, no, we need you to talk to the Falcon. And I had always just assumed that would just be, the way R2 connects to a machine. But that kind of adds to the lore. There's no reason why there couldn't be, like, a droid's memory chip in the Falcon, so I didn't mind that. Snap and his ex get married, showing that the manufactured drama at the beginning of the book where they broke up only existed to create this moment, and this proves me right. Soul has fully graduated from the Ruin Johnson School of Creativity. Plagiarism? Check. Manufactured moments that are really designed to set up moments later on and therefore have no merit of their own? Check. Leads hinting at something bigger that never actually goes anywhere? Check. Mr. Soul, you've graduated with honours. Just like the last volume, the art was done by Angel Unzueta and Arif Prianto, and it's fine, much better than Noto's stuff, so nothing to complain about. There's a good sense of action in some of the scenes, but it's hard to get excited about art when the story backing it up is just so shit. The final issue in this volume is the first annual, and it was released before and set before an issue in volume 3, so what the fuck it's doing at the end of this volume, I have no fucking idea. Clearly the people at Marvel and Disney have just completely given up. They don't care, Soul doesn't care, I don't care, nobody cares. But we're supposed to pay. No wonder this shitty series got cancelled. This is exactly what happened with Resistance. You've got morons like D. Vader running around saying, it wasn't cancelled, it was concluded. It was only supposed to be 2, but you can't say it was cancelled because you don't know that, you have no evidence. Hey, moron! You have no evidence that it was supposed to be only 2. But it was cancelled because it was shit. It was the most childish show they've done so far. The plot revolved around an idiot constantly being saved by a droid, and do you know what? I've seen the trailer for season 2 and I'm not impressed because now they're overcompensating. The First Order's going on a massive hunt for whatever that fucking spaceship thing's called that was the base in the first season. Why? Why are they going out hunting for one fucking base? They wanted the planet because it was a good location that they could control and infiltrate the galaxy. They don't need the actual ship that was there to do that. They could build their own fucking ship. They can build fucking Starkiller Base, but they can't build a landing pad on water. I don't fucking think so. There were 2 things I liked about the trailer though. And that, I know I'm off topic, but, you know, may as well. Why not? I do it all the time. The first was, I think it was at 1 minute 45. I literally watched it today and I noticed it. So I think it's 1:45. You see this, people who play Zelda will know what I'm talking about. It's like a Zora. It's a very tall, it's thinner than a Zora, but it's bluey green, it's adorned with gold. That looks very much to me like a creature that's only been in one story in the new canon, and I'm not aware of them in Legends, although they may have been in it. In the Han Solo comic, which I am getting around to reviewing, I've finished it, I've half written the review, I've just got to finish writing it and record it. There's actually a lone member of a species left, and that looks exactly like her species, and at the end they all kind of come through like a Stargate to another dimension. I think that's that creature. Also the Deep Space Nine style station they've got where the hut was talking and it had like rainbow lights. That looks a lot like the place in the Han Solo comic again where the race started, and that makes a lot of sense to me because the entire Han Solo comic is about a race. It's called the Dragon Void Run, and Star Wars Resistance is heavily, well, it's not heavily, but the station was used for racing, and there are racing ships and racers on board, so it's possible that in its travels across the galaxy, the base that was in Resistance will end up doing the Dragon Void Run, and that would probably be why that space station and that alien are there. Just my theory, I could be wrong. That implies they have a fucking clue what they're doing, but that's just what I think it's leading to. Anyway, back to the Poe comic. The annual has Poe going in search for some intel. He gets caught up in an old Imperial minefield. Him and BB-8 end up floating in space because he destroys his ship because he's a fucking idiot, which is where the cover for this volume comes from. And rather than saving himself, he insists BB-8 take the intel back to Dakar, where the Resistance can use it to fight the First Order. Black Squadron shows up, rescues them both, and Leia commends him for his actions. It ends with Poe warning her that Terex is still alive, which only makes it stand out so much more that this has been printed in completely the wrong volume and out of order. Like I said, they clearly don't give a shit. The art in the annual was penciled by Joe Caramanga and coloured by Jordan Boyd, and this annoys me because you know how Chris Eliopoulos and Geordie Belair had those shitty BB-8 strips in volumes 1 and 2 purely because Eliopoulos does the lettering and he clearly jerked someone off? Well, Joe Caramanga is someone who works for Eliopoulos' lettering company. Fortunately, his art is a lot better than Eliopoulos', so I have no complaints there. It just still fucks me off that a lettering company is getting art printed in a comic. It's fucking stupid. So overall, between the plagiarism in volume 4 and the tracing going on in the flagship comics, I'm actually pretty fucked off at how Disney is treating Star Wars. I was already, but it's just going from bad to worse. Sure, the movies are bad, and perhaps nobody realised Johnson plagiarised The Last Jedi before it was released, but for that kind of despicable injustice and quite frankly sheer lazy behaviour to be rampant in the comics too, just takes it a whole step further and shows furthermore how the people in charge don't care. Is this really the best Disney can give us? I mean, remember the light and dark holocron at the beginning of this book? No explanation for it at all, and nothing came of it throughout the entire comic. But why not? Why write something only to ignore it? This is typical Disney Tourette's writing, and I miss the days before and after the prequels were made. In that era we had nothing but books and comics keeping us going, and that's all we needed. And the authors and artists worked hard to create new and interesting stuff. Not like Disney. Disney don't want to try. Marvel doesn't want to try. Hidalgo doesn't care. So Volume 4 was a step in the right direction, if you have no standards. It was enjoyable for what it was, if you don't mind that you know the story already and none of the characters have any motivation explained at all. Who am I kidding? It felt more fun to read than the previous 3 volumes, but let's face it, it was just as shit, if not worse, simply because Soul plagiarised twice as much in this. They need fresh blood. They need to get Soul out of there. I still have to read Volume 5, fuck me. And the first hardcover of Darth Vader Dark Lord of the Sith comic, and a second one if they ever release it. But I don't care. Even if they're good, it's time for Soul to go. You cannot plagiarise this much and expect people to be okay with it. One more shitty Poe volume to go and I'll be so happy, because I'll be done with this shitty series.